Good evening. Slide a little deeper into your pillow and let your breathing slow. Tonight, we're stepping across a boundary that isn't marked by gates so much as shadows. Kowloon Walled City. Outside, the street is a bright, unruly river horns. Vendors, neon buzzing like restless bees. Inside, light collapses. The sky narrows to a thin gray ribbon, and the first thing you notice is how the walls seem to lean in, as if the city has decided to meet you at the shoulders. Pipes run above like exposed veins, sweating, dripping, and keeping their own irregular time. A drop taps your wrist, another freckles your cheek. It isn't rain. It's the city's recycled breath, returning to greet its inhabitants one beat at a time. You turn sideways to pass, bag tucked against your ribs, and the plaster brushes your sleeve with a damp, gritty kiss. Sound is different here. It doesn't escape. It rebounds your footsteps swallowed and given back to you an octave lower, a cough flattened into an echo that can't quite find a corner to die in. Corridors split, then bend away before you can follow them. And logic nice, straight, mapmaker's logic gives up, replaced by improvisation poured into concrete. Balconies have crept toward each other until they touch. Staircases have been nailed to other staircases. The plan is simply, make room, make do, make it hold. Breathe in gently. There's frying oil somewhere nearby, sweetened for a moment by incense hidden in a shrine, trimmed suddenly by the sour edge of mildew. The air is thick, but not still. Fans hum in distant rooms, moving heat in circles so everyone can share. A fluorescent bulb trembles on a crooked wire, its halo too small to reassure, too stubborn to quit. Between its little islands of light, darkness collects like standing water. You pass people who are close enough to touch, but sealed away behind corrugated doors and thin walls. A child eats quietly from a tin bowl. An old woman leans into her sewing machine, shoulders set like a promise. A television flickers in a room that has forgotten what daylight looks like. Privacy is thin here, but not intimacy. Lives stack, overlap, and seep through, as unavoidable as humidity. Ahead, a stairwell waits steep, narrow, damp to the handrail. The concrete is worn to a slope by thousands of feet, each one a small act of persistence. The building murmurs to itself, a pipe ticking, a neighbor's voice half caught in the plaster, the faint metallic rattle of a fan that has already worked too long. Up you go, counting breaths instead of steps, until a dented door yields to a room the size of a thought. One bulb, one fan, two mattresses, a rope for a curtain. Enough to survive, not enough to rest. Settle in beside me. We'll move through this place slowly, roof and alley, workshop and food stall, daylight and neon, listening for the small human lights that refuse to go out. If you'd like, tell me where you're listening from and what time the night finds you. Then close your eyes. The city is close now. Let the walls press in. We'll make our way through together. The first few steps into Kowloon Walled City feel less like entering a neighborhood and more like being swallowed by it. Behind you, the sunlight evaporates, retreating in a single breath. The glow of the street, the sound of traffic, the smell of roasted chestnuts all vanish as if a curtain has fallen. In their place comes something denser, heavier. The air presses close, tasting faintly of iron and dust, as though it has been exhaled by too many lungs and forgotten how to move on. The alley constricts almost immediately. You turn your body sideways to squeeze through, your shoulder scraping against the slick concrete. It feels warm and damp, like the skin of a living creature. Above you, the pipes twist and loop in chaotic tangles, dozens stacked upon dozens, crossing each other like exposed veins. Some drip steadily, their rhythm unpredictable. Others hiss and shudder, expelling bursts of air that echo like the sighs of the city itself. Each drop that lands on your arm leaves a tiny stain, a baptism of grease and condensation, a reminder that cleanliness here is only a rumor. Somewhere nearby, water slaps into a bucket. A woman's voice calls out in Cantonese, then dissolves into the hum of a fan. It's difficult to tell whether the sound is above, below, or beside you. In this place, directions collapse. Sound doesn't travel in straight lines, it ricochets, loops back, and mingles with its own reflection. The longer you listen, the more confusing it becomes. A cough might belong to someone 2 doors down or 3 floors up. A footstep might come from behind you, or through a wall that's little thicker than a sheet of paper. As you walk deeper, you notice how each section of the alley seems to have been built by a different hand. The ground beneath your feet changes texture every few steps. Cracked concrete gives way to warped wood, then to rusting metal plates that flex slightly under your weight. There are no boundaries, no clear division between what is street, what is home, and what is accident. Everything here bleeds together: the living space, the working space, the waste space, all stacked like sediment from years of desperation. A child darts past, barefoot, a flash of motion in the gloom. He carries a plastic bucket nearly as big as his torso, filled with water that sloshes dangerously close to spilling. You step aside instinctively, pressing into the wall. He doesn't look up, doesn't apologize, just keeps running, disappearing around a bend so narrow you can't imagine how he fits. The echo of his steps fades, swallowed by the building's endless throat. The further you go, the more the city reveals its anatomy. Overhead, cables droop like black vines, tangled and buzzing faintly with current. Each wire is a thread in the web that keeps this organism alive. Electricity pirated from outside lines. Water rerouted through illegal taps. Entire apartments lit and fed by stolen veins. You realize there is nothing accidental about the chaos. It is engineered by necessity. Every leak, every crack, every dripping pipe exists because someone needed it to. The city isn't broken, it's improvising. You pause under a low ceiling where several pipes intersect, their joints patched with strips of cloth and globs of sealant. Water trickles down one seam, forming a steady rhythm against a metal pan someone has left beneath. The sound is oddly hypnotic, an accidental music that fills the silence between breaths. Then you notice the smell, a mixture of boiled rice, detergent, and sewage. It isn't one odor, but a collage of many, layered and shifting with each step you take. A faint vibration hums through the soles of your shoes. Somewhere beneath you, machinery churns, maybe a fan, maybe a grinding wheel. It's impossible to tell. The city is full of unseen labor. Every wall conceals a workshop. Every corridor doubles as a kitchen or a home. You glimpse a doorway left ajar and see the glow of a small stove inside. A man crouches beside it, stirring something in a pot that smokes more than it steams. He doesn't look up as you pass. His bare back gleams with sweat, muscles moving like ropes under his skin. The door closes softly, shutting out the light. There's no breeze here. The air simply sits, trapped between the concrete walls, too tired to circulate. You wipe your forehead, but the sweat doesn't dry. It just redistributes itself. A drop slides down the back of your neck. Another trickles behind your ear. The city has a way of touching you without permission. You start to feel it everywhere, in your clothes, in your hair, in your lungs. It's as though the walled city wants to claim every inch of you, absorb you molecule by molecule until you belong to it completely. You think of the stories you heard before coming of how the place was built without architects or permits, layer upon layer until gravity itself became a negotiation. Standing here, you realize how literal that is. The walls bulge slightly, where too much weight has settled. Balconies lean toward each other like drunks holding hands for balance. The floor dips in places where new concrete has been poured over old rot. You glance upward and see no sky, only a patchwork canopy of tin roofs and hanging laundry, flapping weakly in air that never quite moves. Your sense of direction falters. The alley forks unexpectedly, one path sloping upward, the other tunneling down. Neither looks inviting, but standing still feels worse. You pick the left turn and immediately regret it. The passage narrows even further, so tight you can feel your breath bouncing off both walls at once. A fluorescent tube flickers above its light, a sickly blue that makes everything seem underwater. The walls glisten. The concrete sweats. Somewhere to your right, hidden behind metal grates, a woman hums a lullaby. The tune is beautiful, but faint, distorted by distance, made eerie by the echo. It ends abruptly, as if the city has swallowed it whole. You catch yourself wondering, how many people live here? Tens of thousands, you were told. Families stacked atop families, strangers separated by the thinnest walls imaginable. You picture them now. The old men crouched over bowls of noodles, the children tracing shapes in dust, the women mending shirts by candlelight. Each room a cell, each cell a heartbeat in the body of the city. It should feel chaotic, but it doesn't. It feels deliberate, like an ant colony that has reached the limits of its own perfection. A drop hits your eyelid, startling you. You blink it away and glance upward. A rust-colored stain spreads across the ceiling, pulsing faintly as water gathers and releases in intervals. You take a cautious step back just as another drop falls where you stood. The city leaks constantly, not just water but life itself. What escapes from one home seeps into another. Smells, sounds, even illnesses drift freely through cracks and vents. Privacy here is a myth, and contagion, whether laughter or disease, is the city's most efficient form of communication. You turn another corner and nearly collide with a cat. It stares at you from the shadows, one eye cloudy, the other bright as glass. Its fur is clumped with grease, its tail twitching irritably. Then, with a noise halfway between a hiss and a cough, it slips through a gap in the wall, no wider than your fist. The whole breathes a puff of warm air after it, carrying the faint scent of frying oil and old fabric. You realize the cats of Kowloon navigate this place better than any map could describe. They belong to the city in a way humans only pretend to. The corridor widens briefly into what might once have been a courtyard, though widened is generous. It's just enough space for 3 people to stand without touching shoulders. Overhead, a tangle of clotheslines crisscrosses the gap, hung with shirts, sheets, and rags that drip steadily onto the floor. The only light comes from above, a thin gray slit filtered through so many layers of fabric that it feels borrowed rather than earned. A single bulb dangles from a nail, buzzing faintly, attracting a few lazy moths. One lands on the glass, wings trembling in the heat. You stop and rest, setting your bag down. The strap has rubbed a raw line across your shoulder. When you lean against the wall, it gives slightly, like pressed cardboard. You pull away quickly, half expecting it to crumble. In the distance, somewhere deep in the labyrinth, a radio crackles to life, old Cantonese pop music bleeding through static. The melody wavers, then strengthens, filling the corridor with a strange kind of warmth. You find yourself smiling despite the heat. Music, here, feels like rebellion. A voice startles you. A man leans from a doorway ahead, cigarette dangling from his lips. His shirt is open, his chest slick with sweat. He eyes you for a moment, measuring your hesitation, then nods toward the left. "This way," he says in Cantonese, his tone more weary than welcoming. Before you can thank him, he disappears back inside, door closing behind him with a hollow clang. You obey the gesture and turn left. This new corridor is darker still. You can feel the temperature rise as you move forward. The air smells faintly of boiled cabbage and rust. You pass a row of narrow doors, each one slightly different, some with padlocks, some with curtains instead of wood, some marked with painted numbers that have long since faded. Behind one, you hear a child giggle. Behind another, the sharp clink of metal tools. Life is everywhere, but rarely visible. You begin to understand that the walled city doesn't reveal itself to strangers all at once. It unfolds in layers, each step peeling back a new secret. Halfway down the corridor, the ground changes again. The concrete gives way to wooden planks that creak alarmingly under your weight. You tread carefully, testing each step before trusting it. Below the cracks, water glints faintly. Perhaps it's runoff from a pipe, or perhaps an entire flooded floor lies beneath you. It's impossible to know. The smell rising from the gap is a mix of rot and soap. You keep moving, unwilling to test how deep the darkness goes. A gust of warm air hits you suddenly. It carries the smell of frying garlic and charred meat food from a stall somewhere deeper inside. The scent is both inviting and unsettling, comforting yet corrupted by the omnipresent damp. You realize you're hungry, though you can't imagine eating anything cooked in this air. Still, your body betrays you. Your stomach growls softly. Hunger doesn't care about hygiene. The light ahead flickers and dies, plunging the passage into semi-darkness. You wait, expecting it to return, but it doesn't. Instead, your eyes adjust slowly, finding outlines in the dim. Pipes glint faintly above. The walls gleam with moisture. You move by touch now, one hand trailing along the wall, the other gripping your bag. The texture beneath your fingers changes constantly, rough, smooth, slimy, warm. Each step forward feels like an act of faith. When the light returns, a faint glow spilling from a doorway to your right, it feels like a gift. You peek inside. The room is no larger than a closet, but 3 people occupy it. A woman chopping vegetables on the floor, a boy fanning a charcoal stove, and an elderly man mending a shoe with a bent needle. The walls are the color of old parchment, streaked with damp, but the room is alive with motion and purpose. The woman notices you and smiles faintly, then returns to her work. You nod and step away, feeling suddenly like an intruder in someone's fragile peace. The corridor twists again, and this time you emerge into a slightly wider space, a crossroads of sorts, where several passageways intersect. Overhead balconies lean precariously, their undersides dripping water. Laundry hangs between them like flags in a forgotten parade. The floor here is uneven, patched with broken tiles and sheets of tin. A single bulb swings overhead, throwing the shadows of pipes across the walls like skeletal hands. You recognize this place from the directions you were given. Relief flickers briefly, then fades, when you remember that the journey isn't over. You still need to climb. To your left, a stairwell yawns upward, its entrance marked by rusted rails and peeling paint. You step toward it, drawn by the faint promise of height, perhaps of air. The first step creaks ominously, but holds. The walls close in tighter than ever, slick with condensation. The smell of rust mingles with that of human sweat. Every few steps, a drop falls from above, striking your shoulder or hair. You can hear voices echoing faintly from the floors above footsteps. Laughter, the dull clang of a pan. Halfway up, you pause to catch your breath. The air feels thinner here, though not cleaner. You rest your hand on the railing and instantly regret it. It's sticky, coated in a film of iron dust. You wipe your palm on your trousers and keep climbing. The light grows dimmer with each floor, until finally it's just you, the sound of your breathing, and the rhythmic dripping from the pipes overhead. When you reach the landing, you find yourself staring down a new corridor that looks exactly like the one you left. For a moment, you wonder if you've walked in a circle. The sameness of the architecture disorients you, same walls, same stains, same faint electric buzz. But then you hear it, a familiar voice calling your name from farther down, followed by the creak of a door. Your family. The city's darkness doesn't end at the threshold of your new home. It follows you inside, pressing against the thin metal walls, filtering through the single light bulb that hums above your head. You set your bag down and exhale. The journey here has taken less than an hour, but it feels like days. The dampness has soaked into your bones, and the air tastes of rust. Still, there's a strange relief in arriving. You're inside now, inside the city, inside its body, part of its pulse. Outside the door, the dripping continues, steady and patient, as if the city itself is counting your breaths. You realize that what you've entered isn't just a building or a district. It's an organism that feeds on sound, sweat, and motion. Every wall is a lung, every corridor a vein, and you, newly arrived, are just one more heartbeat in its endless, pulsing dark. The moment you step through the door, it feels as if the city itself has sealed you inside. There is no breeze here, no open windows, no sign of sunlight slipping through cracks or corners. The only light comes from a single bulb dangling overhead, flickering faintly, casting its weak glow across the narrow, concrete box that is now your new home. The smell hits you first, a mixture of stale air, mildew, and something faintly metallic, like the scent of old iron. The walls seem to lean in as though the room itself is holding its breath. The floor is uneven, patched with cracked tiles that are more of an afterthought than a surface you can trust to walk on. Your eyes adjust slowly, and you take in the room a box within a labyrinth, a small, isolated world within a world. The ceiling, low and chipped, hangs too close for comfort, pressing down like a lid. The walls, cracked and stained, tilt slightly inward, as though the entire structure is slowly collapsing in on itself, inch by inch. It's hard to tell how much of the damage is a natural consequence of decay, and how much of it is the result of years of abuse and overcrowding. You can feel the weight of history pressing on your chest. Each crack in the wall, each patch of mildew, each blemish on the floor tells the story of people who have lived and survived here long before you. There's little room to move, just a thin strip of floor between the door and the wall where you drop your belongings. You look around for a place to set down your things, but every inch of this cramped room is already claimed. To your left is a thin mattress, no more than a few inches thick, resting directly on the floor. The fabric is torn in places, exposing the cheap stuffing that has long since flattened under the weight of its many occupants. The mattress isn't soft, nor is it firm. It's just a place to rest, a thing that simply exists, as if to remind you that sleep here is an afterthought. In the far corner, there is a second mattress, rolled up against the wall. It looks like a temporary solution, shoved aside to make room for whatever makeshift furniture has been crammed into this space. A desk, tilting under the weight of one unbalanced leg, is wedged in between the two mattresses, as though it has been shoehorned into the last available spot. The desk isn't much of a desk. It's a cracked piece of plywood supported by uneven scraps of wood, with rust stains on one corner where a mug must have once Saturday. Beneath the desk, a metal fan squats like a tired old sentinel, its blades coated in dust, its whirring noise more a reminder of the heat than an attempt to cool the air. You take a deep breath, but the air feels thicker here, more oppressive. It's not just the humidity, though that is certainly part of it. It's the feeling of being trapped in a box, sealed off from everything. The walls are so close together, you feel like you're part of the room, and the room is part of you. The flickering light above seems to shrink the space even further, giving the room an air of suffocating intimacy. The dampness clings to your skin as you stand there, not yet sure where to place yourself, where to settle into this strange new life. There is no privacy here. None. The thin fabric of the makeshift curtain dividing your room from the rest of the space is more a suggestion than a boundary. It is a delicate sheet that sways slightly as the fan spins lazily, offering no protection against the world outside. You are never alone. Even when you close your eyes, you can hear everything: your family's movements, their breathing, the shuffling of feet, the whispers of conversation. Privacy is a luxury here, and one that is non-existent. Every sound in the room is amplified. every movement felt by all. You don't need to see your family to know what they are doing. You hear it all: the quiet laughter, the coughs, the whispered prayers at night. There is no space between you and them, no barrier to shield you from their lives. You are as close to them as you are to the walls themselves. And sometimes it feels like the walls are the only thing between you and the world beyond. The walls, damp and discolored, are so thin that the slightest noise from the neighboring rooms leaks through like a whisper carried on the wind. A neighbor's child cries in the room next door, the sound carrying with terrifying clarity through the thin plaster. You've barely had a chance to settle in before the constant background noise of the city begins to invade: voices shouting in the alley below, the clang of metal, the hum of distant machinery. It's as though the city is a living organism, and this room is merely one small cell in its sprawling body. And yet, within this claustrophobic space, there's a strange sense of belonging. The room may be tiny, the air heavy, and the walls crumbling, but it's also where you will sleep, eat, and live for as long as you are here. You shift your weight, adjusting to the feeling of your body pressed against the damp wall, the mattress beneath you, the rustling sounds of your family settling in for the night. You're not alone in this. The city is alive, and you are part of it, just as the people around you are part of its pulse. You feel it in the way the air presses in, the way your family shifts, their bodies close but never quite touching. You feel it in the walls, in the way they seem to breathe with you, in the constant noise of the city seeping through. There is a strange comfort in the fact that no one here is alone. The city forces you together, pushing everyone into tight quarters, creating a constant intermingling of lives, of noise, of smells, of warmth. Your family, though close enough to feel the weight of their presence constantly, is the only thing separating you from the endless web of humanity that exists in the corridors outside. You feel it in the footsteps of your neighbors, in the voices that rise and fall through the walls, in the constant rhythm of the city's life. You are part of this strange, chaotic community. And yet, as you lie down on the mattress, feeling the weight of the walls pressing in, you realize that you are also a stranger here. The room, the city, the people, they are all part of a system that has been running long before you arrived. And yet, you are part of it now. You belong to this place, whether you want to or not. The fan continues to rattle in the corner, pushing the humid air around without ever truly cooling the room. You close your eyes, listening to the sounds of your family's breathing, the creaks and groans of the building around you, the hum of the city itself. You have no choice but to adapt. There is no escape from this place, no way to shut out the constant noise, the constant pressure of the walls, the constant feeling of being surrounded. But for tonight, at least, you can rest. You can lie down, close your eyes, and surrender to the chaos. Tomorrow will come with its own demands, its own noise, its own struggles. But for now, in this small, overcrowded room, you are at home. It's not the home you imagined, not the home you expected, but it is home nonetheless. The city doesn't rest, it doesn't sleep, and it certainly doesn't let you. The moment you think you've managed to find a moment of peace, the sound rises again. There is no escape from it, not here, not anywhere. It surrounds you, invades your thoughts, presses on you from all sides. It's the noise of life, but it's also the noise of survival, of a place that never lets up, not even for a second. It's a soundscape that's both comforting and oppressive, like a constant heartbeat that never quiets, no matter how hard you try to drown it out. The city is alive in a way that most cities aren't. It doesn't just exist in the usual sense, it pulses, throbs, and breathes. Its sounds are its lifeblood, the constant hum of the streets, the clatter of metal on metal, the distant murmur of a conversation, the rattle of pipes, the creak of wooden beams. Even in the dead of night, when you think you might finally slip into a quiet, uninterrupted sleep, the city keeps talking. You can hear it in the walls. The floors groan beneath you. The ceiling creaks as though it's trying to remember its own age. The air vibrates with the constant sound of machinery, of people, of a world that refuses to stop. In the room, the noise is compressed, amplified by the walls that barely separate you from everything else. The thin, peeling plaster does nothing to absorb it, it only echoes it, as if the walls themselves are trying to join in. The sound of your family's breaths, their quiet whispers, their shifting on the mattresses, all of it reverberates in the small space, as though the entire room is breathing with you. But it's not just the sounds of your family. Outside, the city is loud. The street vendors' shouts, the far-off blare of horns, the thrum of distant machinery. It all blends into a single, undulating mass of noise that refuses to recede. And when night falls, it's no different. At first, you might think it will quiet down, that maybe the city sleeps when the moon rises. But it doesn't. The sounds just shift, adjust, move from one form of chaos to another. The laughter of children fades into the rhythm of a woman pounding on a washing board. The street traffic slows, replaced by the thudding of someone's shoes on the wet pavement. It's as if the city has a second shift, one that works through the night, feeding off the rhythm of the day. Inside your room, the noise is its own living entity, pulsing through the floor and walls. You try to lie still, to shut out the cacophony, but it slips into your bones, settling there like an unwanted guest that refuses to leave. Your family's voices murmur, softer now, blending into the background noise that surrounds them. A neighbor coughs a deep, wet cough that echoes through the walls like a drumbeat. You hear a door creak open, footsteps dragging heavily across the floor. The scratching of rats in the walls, the occasional yelp of a dog, the clink of metal as someone in the next room tries to fix something. Every little sound, every crack, every creak, every rustle becomes magnified in the stillness of the night. Even the flickering light above you hums, a constant reminder that you're not alone, that the city isn't either. The worst part, though, is the way the noise is inescapable. There's no room here for silence. Even when the city quiets for a moment, the space between sounds is just as loud. Silence is a foreign concept in Kowloon Walled City. Here, the sound is relentless, like a tide that never recedes. It seeps into everything, your thoughts, your dreams, your skin. It moves with you, follows you, becomes part of you. You can't escape it. It's like the walls themselves are breathing, and you're caught inside them. Even when you lie in bed, eyes closed, trying to find peace, the noise follows you. The sound of your own breathing mingles with the distant clattering of pots, the shouting from the alley below, the hum of machinery that never stops. It doesn't matter whether it's day or night. The sound doesn't change, it just shifts its focus. The days are a blur of voices, of machines, of the hum of the city pressing against you. The nights are filled with the same noise, but more concentrated. The silence between the sounds feels like an absence that doesn't belong, like the space before a storm hits. You lie awake, listening to the distant cry of a child, the sound of metal scraping against concrete, the constant hum of the city. You close your eyes, but the noise remains. It burrows into your mind, weaving itself into your dreams, into your nightmares. And then there's the claustrophobia, the feeling of being trapped in a space too small to escape, too confined to breathe. The walls press against you. The ceiling feels too low, the air too thick. The room feels like a box that's slowly closing in, the edges blurring, the walls becoming less solid, more liquid, as though they're swallowing you whole. You try to push against it, to stretch out, but there's nowhere to go. The walls don't just surround you, they pull you in. You move a little, shift your weight, but it's no use. The room is so small, and every inch feels like it's been accounted for. Even your bed, the thin mattress on the floor, seems to resist you, Its surface too firm, too close, too full of the scent of sweat and mildew. The sheets are thin, worn through in places, and they cling to your skin with the humidity that fills the room. You can feel the walls breathing, their dampness seeping into you, pressing down on you, as though the very space itself is alive and unwilling to let you go. You try to push the thoughts away, to ignore the claustrophobia that claws at the edges of your mind, but it's impossible. The room is too small, the walls too close, and the sound of the city outside, the noise that fills the air, only makes the feeling of being trapped worse. There is no escape, not from the noise, not from the walls, not from the city itself. You are caught in its web, stuck in its labyrinth, and no matter how hard you try, there's no way out. The longer you stay here, the more the city becomes part of you. The noise isn't just something you hear anymore, it's something you feel. It vibrates in your bones, in your muscles, in your skin. It's inside you now, a constant hum that follows you wherever you go. You can't escape it, not even in sleep. Even when your eyes close, the noise keeps playing in your mind, a rhythm that never stops. It's as if the city itself is alive, and you are its heartbeat. You are part of the pulse, part of the constant movement, part of the noise that will never stop. But that's the thing about Kowloon Walled City. It doesn't care if you can't escape it. It doesn't care about your discomfort, your exhaustion, your desire for peace. The city will keep going, day and night, pushing against you, surrounding you, pressing down on you. It will continue to make noise, continue to fill the air, continue to keep you awake. And the longer you stay here, the more you become part of that rhythm, part of the pulse. The walls will always be too close. The noise will always be too loud. And you, well, you will always be caught in the middle of it. You are the city now, and there is no escape. You've spent hours in the bowels of the city, and now you've reached the top. The stairwell has been long, each step an effort, the air thicker as you ascended. When you reach the final flight, you feel the promise of space, of openness, hanging in the air like a whispered secret. The door at the top of the stairs creaks as you push it open, and the first breath of fresh air hits you, the smell of dust and concrete mixing with something faintly organic, the scent of a city trying to breathe. The city itself seems to exhale with you. You step through the doorway and into the wide, open space of the roof. For a moment, it feels like freedom. Your eyes, tired from staring at the grime and decay of the corridors below, widen instinctively as they take in the view. You glance upward, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you see the sky. Not the tiny ribbon of light that you glimpsed between buildings or through narrow alleyways, but a full expanse, a ragged patch of blue, framed by the towering concrete of the buildings surrounding you. It's not the vastness of the sky you've seen in dreams, but it's something more than the suffocating weight of the walls that have closed in on you for days. The sunlight is different up here too. It's brighter, warmer, filtering through the haze of pollution that hangs in the air like a curtain. The warmth spreads across your skin, and for a moment you close your eyes, letting it seep into you. The light feels like it's yours to keep, as though the harsh, ever-present darkness of the city could be shaken off for just a moment. You take a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill your lungs. The staleness of the rooms you've passed through seems a distant memory. For a few seconds, you're free, or at least you think you are. But then, you hear it, the sounds that have followed you everywhere, the noise that has permeated every step of your journey. From up here, you realize the city never truly stops. You hear children's laughter first, sharp, playful, and close. You turn toward the sound, squinting into the distance. A group of children, no older than 8 or 9, are darting between rusting water tanks and piles of scrap metal. They are playing a game, laughing as they leap from one precarious spot to another. One child runs along the edge of the roof, his bare feet skimming the uneven surface. The drop below him nothing more than a blur of concrete. You catch your breath. The sight is thrilling and horrifying all at once. The edge is thin, too thin for a child to be playing so carelessly on. You watch as another child teeters dangerously, arms outstretched, laughing at something only they understand. The wind stirs their clothes, but it doesn't seem to reach them the way it reaches you. To them, this roof is a playground, an arena for games that have no boundaries, no warnings, no regard for the depth that waits just beyond the lip of the roof. You wonder how long it's been since you felt that kind of freedom. No fear, no restraint, just the joy of running wild, of knowing nothing could hold you back. But that feeling isn't yours anymore. Not here. Not in this place. A voice calls out from the corner of the roof, a woman's voice, shouting something in Cantonese. You turn your head, following the sound, and find her bent over a basin, scrubbing clothes. She doesn't look up, doesn't seem to notice you standing there, watching. She's focused, determined, her hands moving rhythmically over the fabric as she slaps it against a rock. The fabric ripples in the wind, drying in the heat, but it's never quite dry. The air is too thick, the sun too harsh. The city's breath is everywhere, and even the open sky can't clear it away. Behind her, two men sit on the ground, hunched over a card table. They're gambling, their voices low, their hands quick and practiced as they shuffle cards. The sound of dice clattering against the table mixes with the laughter from the children. The air around them is thick with smoke. Cigarette butts lie scattered across the cracked concrete, and the smell of burning oil rises from somewhere below, mixing with the stench of sewage. The smoke curls into the air, but it never truly disperses. It hangs around you, a reminder that no matter how high you go, you can never escape the filth that defines this place. The rooftop is a paradox. It should be a place of relief, a space to breathe, but instead, it's just a different layer of the city, a higher layer, yes, but still part of the same relentless structure. The sunlight feels like an escape, but it's temporary. The warmth on your skin reminds you that you're alive, but it's tainted by the smells that rise from below. The smoke, the garbage, the sweat. The heat presses down on you in a way that feels oppressive, suffocating in its own right. Even the breeze that stirs the laundry isn't enough to cool the air, which is thick with moisture and dust. You take a few steps toward the edge of the roof, eyes following the lines of corrugated metal and broken tiles. The drop below seems farther than you thought, but still, it looms. You reach out to touch one of the rusty metal water tanks. It's warm, the metal slick with condensation, the surface pocked with rust. You run your hand along it, but you can't shake the feeling that everything here is as fragile as the buildings below. One wrong step, one misplaced foot, and it all comes crumbling down. The roof is no sanctuary. It's not the freedom you thought it would be. It's just another level of the same prison. The noise, too, is different up here. It's louder somehow. The sounds of the city below are amplified. The voices, the machinery, the cries of children, all of it mingling in a chaotic symphony that fills the air. There is no true silence here. The sounds of the city climb upward, layer by layer, until they're part of the very air you breathe. Even the breeze that carries the scent of frying oil and burnt garbage seems to refuse to let go. There is no escape from it. There is no respite. For a brief moment, you wonder if you imagine the sense of freedom. If the roof was never truly an escape. Maybe it was always just part of the city. Another space carved out of the same claustrophobic design. Another way for the city to trap you. You glance back at the children. One of them, the same boy who was running along the edge, now crouches near the water tank, peering down. He grins, eyes wide, and for a moment, you see a glimpse of something pure in him, something untouched by the dirt and chaos below. It's an illusion, though, a fleeting moment of innocence that vanishes as quickly as it comes. The boy runs again, his feet slapping against the metal, and you realize, just like that, the illusion is gone. You look up at the sky again, but it's not the sky you wanted to see. It's the same cityscape, just a few stories higher. The sun beats down harshly, but you feel the weight of the buildings around you more than the light itself. The sky is just another ceiling, the rooftop just another floor in the city's maze. For a few seconds, you stand there, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of the space around you, realizing that even the sky doesn't offer what you thought it would. The city has a way of pressing on every inch of you, forcing you to adapt to its rhythms, its chaos, its noise. And no matter how high you climb, no matter how much space you think you gain, it will always be there pressing in, surrounding you, pulling you back. The illusion of freedom collapses as quickly as it came. You step away from the edge, feeling the weight of the city settle back into your chest. The rooftop isn't the escape you thought it was. It's just another part of the city. And no matter how high you go, you'll always be caught in its grasp. The feeling of freedom from the rooftop fades quickly as you descend back into the heart of the walled city. The air grows heavier again as you slip through the narrow labyrinthine alleys, each corner leading you deeper into the industrial belly of the city. You feel as if you are falling back into its insatiable stomach, and the noise, the smells, the heat, and the sweat all press in with more force. As you step into the corridors of the lower levels, you can hear it, the steady hum of industry, the rhythm of machinery grinding, shaping, and laboring, working the flesh of the city to its last bone. The factories here are not like the sleek, regulated plants you might imagine from the outside world. There are no white walls, no modern equipment, no sanitation. These factories are grim, crude, and they feel like they are carved directly from the stone that holds the city together. The air is thick with smoke, a mixture of burning oil and the stale stench of sweat, mixed with something faintly metallic, a scent that lingers in your nostrils as if it has seeped into your very bones. You pass through a narrow corridor where the walls are damp and slick with the remnants of past work. The faint drip, drip, drip of water falling from rusted pipes overhead is the soundtrack to your walk, blending with the sounds of hammers striking metal, the hiss of steam escaping from leaking valves, and the sharp, rhythmic clang of machinery that has seen better days but still keeps working. The factory floors stretch on either side of you, some of them so cramped you can barely squeeze through, others open but equally oppressive, filled with workers hunched over their stations, their faces grim with exhaustion. The workers here, you notice, are mostly young. Children, no older than 12, scramble beneath the machines, dodging the moving parts and the overhead beams that might come crashing down at any moment. Their hands, small but quick, move with practiced precision, their faces barely visible under the grime and the dust that coats their skin. It's a sight you're not unfamiliar with by now, children. Once meant for school or play, now here, bound by the suffocating grip of necessity, forced into labor before they've even had the chance to dream. You pass by a noodle factory, where a man stands in front of a boiling vat, stirring thick dough with a long wooden paddle. The steam rises in plumes, thick and acrid, and the air burns with the sharp smell of boiling oil. You feel the heat even from a distance, the oppressive weight of the work, the sense that there is no room for error, no space for anything except the work itself. The man's face is lined with fatigue, his hands scarred from years of work, and yet there's something resigned in his posture. This is his life now, and he moves through it like a machine himself. Behind him, the workers churn, slapping noodles onto tables, packing them into crates, their movements so automatic, so practiced, they seem like cogs in the same machine that runs the city. The workers' clothing is worn thin from years of use. They wear ragged shirts and pants, the fabric faded and patched in places. The children who rush past you, carrying trays of steaming food or buckets of water, look like ghosts in the dim light, their eyes hollow and their faces drawn with exhaustion. There is no laughter here, No joy in the air. Only the clatter of metal, the hiss of machines, the drone of voices that rise and fall like a constant undertone to the noise of the factory. As you walk deeper into the belly of the beast, the atmosphere changes. It's not just the factories that dominate this part of the city, it's also the crime, the lawlessness that has become a part of the walled city's fabric. The triads, those unseen masters of Kowloon, seem to be everywhere. Their influence stretches across every corner, every alleyway, and every building. You can feel it in the way the workers move. There's a certain caution, a hesitation that hangs in the air. You see men standing by the doorways, their eyes scanning the crowds, their postures stiff and wary. Their presence is silent but palpable, like an invisible weight that presses down on everyone around them. You turn a corner and find yourself in a small, dimly lit alley, the ground slick with oil and water. A few men stand outside a small shop, their eyes hard and calculating. They look at you, sizing you up for a moment, but don't speak. The shop door is propped open, and you can hear the clink of coins, the soft murmur of voices inside. The stench of cigarettes and stale alcohol wafts out from the crack in the door. These men don't seem to be workers, but they are tied to the city's pulse, its undercurrent of survival and crime. In Kowloon, the line between survival and exploitation is razor thin. The triads don't just run the black market. They run the streets, the businesses, the factories. Every transaction that takes place is touched by their hands. Every deal done under the shadow of their influence. The city is a marketplace of necessity, where nothing is truly free. And everything comes at a price. Even food, the sustenance that keeps the workers moving, is rationed out like a commodity, passed from hand to hand, from stall to stall, with the triads at the center of it all. As you continue through the alleyways, you notice the workers don't speak much, only a few muttered words here and there, mostly about the job, the long hours, the sweat, and the fatigue. But beneath that surface, there's something else, something darker that you can't quite place. The fear, the tension, the knowledge that you're being watched, that you're not truly free, not here. Even when you cross the threshold of the factories, there's no true sense of privacy. The triads have eyes everywhere, ears in every corner, and their power reaches into every home, every shop, every workplace. You pass a few small shops, a butcher, a tailor, a herbalist, and each one has its own rhythm. The butcher's knife clangs on the cutting block as he hacks at a piece of meat, blood spilling onto the floor. The tailor's sewing machine hums steadily, the needle darting in and out of the fabric with practiced precision. The herbalist mixes potions behind a counter, her hands moving quickly as she stirs a boiling pot. It's the same everywhere you go, the same sound, the same rhythm, the same sense of routine. But there's no joy here, no sense of artistry, no creativity. There's only the work. The noise is always present, buzzing in the background. The sound of machines, of hammers, of sewing needles, of footsteps echoing on the concrete. And beneath it all, the constant hum of machinery. It's the heartbeat of the walled city, the rhythm that keeps it alive, the noise that never stops. The city is a factory, a prison, a marketplace, all rolled into one. And as much as the workers, the triads, and the criminals try to carve out some semblance of control, they too are trapped in its web. The factories, the work, the crime, it's all one system, one organism, functioning in its own chaotic, brutal way. And you are part of it now, caught in the same web. You feel it in the way your shoulders sag, in the exhaustion that sits in your bones, in the way the air seems to grow heavier with each passing moment. There is no escape. Not here. Not in the walled city. The only thing that matters is survival. And the cost of survival is always high. You thought you had gotten used to the constant noise of Kowloon Walled City, the hum of industry, the clatter of metal, the ever-present murmur of voices, but nothing prepares you for the onslaught of scents that hits you as you move deeper into the labyrinth. The smell here is a visceral part of life. It's not just something you passively inhale. It's something that clings to you, that sticks to your skin, your clothes, and your thoughts. It's the smell of sweat, of oil, of sewage, of mildew. And beneath it all, there's always the unmistakable scent of food frying, boiling, roasting, cooking in kitchens so cramped and poorly ventilated. It feels like the very air is saturated with the greasy aroma. You pass a food stall, its metal frame nearly bending under the weight of stacked baskets filled with noodles, dumplings, and various unidentifiable objects. The vendor, a wiry man with a face that's seen too many long days, doesn't look up as you approach. His hands are quick, moving with the practiced precision of someone who has been doing this for years, his fingers darting between hot pans, tossing ingredients with a flick of his wrist. The smell of frying oil fills the air, thick and suffocating, mixing with the tang of soy sauce and the sharp bite of garlic. It makes your stomach twist in hunger and discomfort all at once. The food here is survival, not pleasure. It's meant to fill you, to keep you going, not to offer any kind of comfort or enjoyment. You step closer. The heat from the frying wok's almost palpable on your skin. There's a group of people gathered around the stall, each of them clutching a battered bowl, their eyes downcast as they eat quickly, silently, without pleasure. The food is cheap, greasy, and often questionable in quality, but it's a necessary part of the daily grind. You watch as the vendor scoops a ladle of dark broth into a bowl, adding a handful of noodles and a few strips of meat that's almost too tender to be real, too perfectly cut to seem authentic. But no one here asks questions. No one here is concerned about where the food came from, what it was before it was cooked, or whether it's safe to eat. In Kowloon, hunger doesn't wait for answers. You feel the pang of your own stomach, twisting with the familiar ache of hunger, and you step forward. The vendor hands you a bowl, the edges chipped and worn smooth by years of use. It feels heavy in your hands, the broth steaming, releasing the scent of boiled meat and spice into the air. You lower your face to the bowl, inhaling deeply. The smell is overpowering, almost too much to bear, but your body craves it. Your hunger gnaws at you, desperate for anything, for any taste that will fill the emptiness. The bowl is placed into your hands like a sacred offering, and you eat. The first bite hits your tongue like a jolt, greasy, salty, a little too much soy sauce, a little too much oil. The texture is heavy, thick, like the food is meant to sit in your stomach for hours, to ground you, to remind you that you are still here, still alive. The meat, if you can call it that, is stringy and soft, but the taste is faint, almost non-existent, drowned out by the overpowering flavors of salt and oil. The noodles are dense, clinging together in a tangled mess, sticking to the bottom of the bowl. It's not food made for enjoyment. It's food made to fill you up, to silence the growls of an empty stomach, to keep you going until the next meal, until the next bite of greasy sustenance. You chew slowly, trying to savor the little moments of comfort it provides, but the texture is all wrong. There's something off about it, something that doesn't sit right in your stomach, but you swallow anyway. You can't afford to question the food. Not here. In Kowloon, food is survival. There's no room for picky eaters, no room for fastidiousness or concern for quality. If you want to live, you eat whatever's in front of you, and you swallow it down without thinking too hard. Around you, the other patrons are eating just as quickly, their faces blank, their eyes unfocused, all of them caught in the same cycle of survival. No one speaks. No one laughs. It's just the sound of chewing, of slurping, of the occasional cough as someone tries to swallow down a lump of food that refuses to go down smoothly. No one is enjoying their meal. Not here. The food is simply something to get through. It's a fuel source, a necessity, a means to an end. The vendor watches the crowd, his face impassive, as if he's seen this all before, as if he's become numb to the scene, to the people who come to him day after day to buy their survival. The air is thick with the smell of food, but it's not a comforting smell. It's an overwhelming stench that seems to linger in your nostrils, thick and greasy, almost suffocating. The heat from the woks and the steam from the boiling pots combine with the smell of sweat and dirt, and it feels like it's closing in on you, pressing you down. You finish your bowl, the last bite sticking in your throat, but you swallow it anyway. There's nothing left to do but continue eating, continue surviving. As you move away from the stall, your stomach feels heavy, but it's not the fullness you hoped for. It's a dull, uncomfortable weight, like your body is absorbing the filth that the food brings with it. The grease sticks to your fingers, the broth leaves a metallic taste in your mouth, and the smell clings to your clothes, to your skin. You feel the grit of the city inside you, in your body, in your soul. The food doesn't nourish you in the way you need. It doesn't fill you with energy or comfort. It just keeps you from collapsing, just keeps you from the worst pangs of hunger. The streets here are littered with the remnants of meals, empty bowls, discarded wrappers, bits of food tossed into gutters. The city consumes itself, and its people are the fuel. The air is thick with the stench of waste, food waste, human waste, garbage. Everything here is in constant decay, in constant motion, and there's no time for things to settle, for things to rest. The city is alive with filth, with dirt, with hunger, with need, and it feeds on the people who live here. You pass a group of children sitting on the ground, their clothes stained and torn, picking at scraps of food they've found. One of them holds out a half-eaten piece of bread to another, who takes it without hesitation. There's no sharing of food here. It's not a kindness. It's a necessity. Survival is more important than anything else. You try to look away, but the image sticks with you. The desperation in their eyes, the hunger that's too big to fill with anything other than more food, more scraps, more leftovers. And yet, even in the midst of all this filth, there's life. There's resilience. You see it in the way the vendors continue to shout their wares, in the way the people continue to move through the streets, in the way the children continue to play, despite the dangers that lurk around them. The city doesn't let go of you. It clings to you, makes you a part of it. And the food, the filth, the hunger, it's all a part of the cycle. It's all a part of survival. You feel the weight of it in your stomach, in your body, in your thoughts. The food doesn't fill you. It doesn't satisfy you. It only reminds you that survival here is the only thing that matters. The taste of survival is bitter, it's greasy, it's uncomfortable, but it's all you've got. And in Kowloon, that's enough. Night falls again, but there's no relief. In Kowloon Walled City, night is not a refuge. It doesn't bring the promise of quiet or the comfort of rest. It only deepens the suffocating grip of the city, the weight of its noise and its smell pressing down harder as the world around you shifts into a new kind of rhythm. The flickering fluorescent light above you buzzes, a constant hum that cuts through the silence in your cramped room, while the city outside continues to breathe louder, more chaotic, never slowing. You've grown used to the noise during the day. It's constant, yes, but it's predictable. You've learned to tune it out, to block it out, to carry on as if it's just another part of the city's pulse. But at night, it changes. It shifts. The usual sounds of industry, of work, of survival, fall into a new rhythm, a rhythm that's harder to ignore. The murmurs from neighboring rooms grow louder as people settle into their own version of sleep. The occasional cough or cry echoes through the walls, distant but close enough to rattle your nerves. A baby's cry rises in the distance, sharp and desperate, but it fades quickly, only to be replaced by the sound of a door slamming, footsteps shuffling in the hallway. The sounds are all around you, always, but now they're magnified by the stillness of the night, by the lack of any other noise to drown them out. It's impossible to tell whether you've truly fallen asleep or if you're only drifting in and out of consciousness, caught between the waking world and the fevered, half-formed dreams that plague you. Your body is heavy, the heat of the room mixing with the thick humidity that never leaves the air. Sweat clings to your skin, making everything feel sticky and uncomfortable. The mattress beneath you is thin. It springs creaking with every shift, but it offers no relief. You roll over, trying to find a position that doesn't make your body ache, but it's impossible. The weight of the air is oppressive, and you feel it in your chest, in your lungs, pressing down with every breath. In the darkness, the smell of mildew and decay seems to grow stronger, filling the room, crawling under your skin. It's the smell of the city itself, the smell of things left to rot, of people left to linger in spaces that were never meant to hold them. It settles in your throat, making each breath feel thick and heavy. The walls, sweat, beads of condensation collecting on the plaster, as though the room itself is trying to expel the moisture that clings to it. You try to ignore it, to push through the discomfort, but it's impossible. The room is alive with the sickness of the city, the very air you breathe contaminated by the filth that surrounds you. And then there's the coughing. It starts in the other room, a low, guttural cough, the kind that feels like it's coming from deep in the chest. It's not the first time you've heard it. The sound of people coughing has become a part of your nightly routine, a constant reminder of the sickness that spreads through the city like a shadow, infecting everyone, whether they're ready for it or not. The cough grows louder, more persistent, and soon you hear another one join in a child's cough, high-pitched and wheezing. The rhythm of it is sickening, like a drumbeat that keeps you awake, reminding you of the inevitable. You can't escape it. You can't ignore it. The sickness is everywhere. It creeps through the air, through the walls, through the very fabric of the walled city. There's no getting away from it. It spreads like wildfire, moving from one person to the next, passed along in the damp air, in the filthy water, in the crowded streets. People here are always sick, always fighting off the next round of illness. It's not a matter of if, but when. Everyone has something: fever, chills, a cough that never goes away. The air is thick with it, and there's no escaping it, no place to run. Even the children are not spared. They, too, are infected, their tiny bodies already weakened by the conditions they live in, their immune systems no match for the sickness that circulates endlessly. You can hear it in the rooms next to yours, the persistent coughs, the wheezing breaths, the shuffling of feet as people move from one corner to another, trying to get comfortable in the discomfort. The sickness doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care how old you are or how much you've endured. It spreads like a silent force, moving through the air, through the water, through every crack and crevice, until there's nothing left untouched. You wonder how much longer you can last in this place, how much longer your body can endure the constant strain, the constant pressure, how long you can keep pushing forward when every breath feels like it's suffocating you, when every cough reminds you that the sickness is always lurking, waiting to claim you too. The walls of the city feel even closer now, the air thicker, the noise louder, the boundaries between night and day blur. Time doesn't exist here, not in the way it does in other places. It's just a continuous cycle of survival, of trying to make it through each moment, each hour, without succumbing to the weight of it all. Sleep, when it comes, is fitful and restless. The flickering light above you casts strange shadows on the walls, making the room feel even smaller, even more oppressive. You close your eyes, trying to find some semblance of rest, but the sounds of the city continue. They slip through the cracks of your consciousness, keeping you awake, keeping you alert. The coughs, the cries, the shuffling of feet, all of it moves with you, follows you like an endless loop that you can't break free from. The bed is too small, the room too tight, and no matter how hard you try to ignore it, The sickness is always there. It's in the air you breathe, the space you occupy. It's part of the city, part of you now. The coughing grows louder, closer. The child's cough is followed by another, a deeper, more guttural one. You can hear the exhaustion in the sound, the desperation in each breath. You try to ignore it, but it gnaws at you, tearing through the silence, making it impossible to escape. You want to help, want to do something, but there's nothing you can do. The sickness is too widespread, too inevitable. You're all caught in the same web, bound by the same fate. As the night stretches on, the sickness becomes a constant companion, a reminder that survival here is not about thriving, it's about making it through, just barely, until the next day. The air thickens, the coughing spreads, and the city keeps breathing, alive in its own way, feeding on the lives of the people who are trapped inside. The noise never stops. The sickness never stops. And neither do you. You close your eyes, hoping for a moment of peace, but the city's pulse beats too loudly. The air is too thick. The sickness too close. There's no escaping it. Not here. Not now. You lie in the dark, trapped in the endless night, waiting for the morning that never comes. Section 8. Fragile humanity, small kindnesses, and shared survival. The city moves in its endless rhythm, the noise, the dirt, and the illness, all blending into a cacophony of existence that never pauses. Yet, even within the crushing weight of Kowloon Walled City, in the thick walls of concrete that feel like they could swallow everything, there are moments that flicker through the gloom like rare sparks of light. In the constant struggle to survive, there are small, quiet gestures, acts of compassion that rise above the cruelty of the city, offering proof that even here, amid the filth and the grinding exhaustion, humanity endures. You remember the first time someone reached out to you, a simple gesture that felt like a lifeline. It was an evening when you felt the oppressive weight of the city more than ever, the heat, the dampness, the stench of mildew and grease hanging thick in the air. Your body ached from the long days of labor, and your mind felt heavy with the knowledge that no matter how hard you worked, there would always be more to do, more to survive. Your sleep was broken, your food barely enough to quiet your hunger. It was on one such night, as you lay on your thin mattress, feeling the walls close in, that a knock echoed through the alley. A woman from a few doors down stood in the doorway, holding a bowl of broth, the steam rising in delicate wisps. She wasn't someone you knew well, just a face you passed on the stairs. A woman who lived in one of the cramped rooms just a few floors below. Yet, in that moment, her face was full of kindness, her eyes soft and steady. She didn't ask if you were sick or if you needed help. She just handed you the bowl. And in doing so, she offered you more than just food. She offered you a small piece of humanity, a reminder that despite everything, despite the unrelenting cruelty of the city, people here still took care of each other. You took the broth from her hands with a quiet word of thanks, feeling the warmth of it as much as the warmth of her gesture. The broth, simple as it was, just boiled vegetables, and the faintest hint of meat tasted like something you hadn't had in a long time. Comfort. It wasn't just the nourishment that filled you, but the realization that someone cared enough to offer it. In a place where survival was the priority, where every person seemed to be looking out for their own, this small act of kindness was something rare, something precious. And then there was the medicine. It had arrived just days later, in the same manner. A neighbor, a man you had seen but never spoken to, knocked on your door one morning, holding a small vial of tincture. He didn't explain what it was or where it had come from. He simply handed it to you, his face set with quiet determination. His wife had used it, he said, and it had worked wonders for her cough. No questions asked, no demands, just a simple exchange, humanity for humanity. You knew that this small bottle of medicine could have been his lifeline, just as much as it might become yours. And yet, he gave it to you, without hesitation, without the need for anything in return. It wasn't a cure, but it was something. And sometimes, that's all that mattered. People here understood the value of small gestures of helping one another, not because they expected anything, but because survival in the walled city was not an individual effort. It was collective, born from the strength of shared survival. When one person faltered, the others picked them up. And so, the cycle continued. Children, too, were a reminder of this unspoken bond. You often watched as they moved through the alleys, their laughter louder than the noise of the factories, their bodies small and nimble as they darted between legs, over pipes, and under hanging laundry. But there was something different about these children in Kowloon. They were raised in a world that demanded more from them than any child should bear. The narrow alleys that might have seemed like a playground to others were a place of danger for them. The rooftops were their jungle gyms, and the streets their classrooms. But in a place like this, their survival was never guaranteed. They knew that their safety depended not only on their own vigilance, but also on the vigilance of those around them. It wasn't just their parents who kept an eye out for them. The whole community watched over the children. A woman who had never borne children of her own would scold a boy who ran too close to the edge of the roof. A man would stop his work long enough to pull a girl away from a broken pipe before she could drink from it. Everyone played a part in raising the next generation, not because it was an obligation, but because the collective survival of the community demanded it. No child was ever truly alone here. Every adult was their protector, their guardian, even if their names were unknown, even if their faces blurred by years of survival. The children of Kowloon grew up with a sense of belonging, even if they didn't know who to thank. And in return, they carried the weight of the city's survival on their shoulders, one day at a time. In the midst of this struggle, there were other, quieter acts of resistance, small moments that defied the city's indifference to life. The shrines, tucked into the corners of hallways or hidden behind makeshift curtains, were places of silent defiance. They were simple, humble things, small incense burners, bowls of rice, candles that flickered weakly in the damp air, but they held meaning. The people who left offerings at these shrines were not doing so out of superstition. They were doing it out of the belief that they could not let the world grind them down entirely. There was something sacred in these acts, something that said, "We are still here. We are still fighting." They were rituals of endurance, spiritual acts that held a flicker of hope, a belief that, even in the midst of this chaos, something greater might watch over them. These offerings were not grand gestures, but they mattered. They were symbols of persistence in a place where everything else seemed to decay. The incense smoke rose in thin spirals, filling the narrow, suffocating hallways with a faint, sweet fragrance that temporarily masked the stench of sewage, oil, and sweat. The food offerings, small plates of rice or fruit, placed carefully before the shrines, were not enough to stave off hunger, but they were a reminder that, even in the hardest of time, people still made space for the sacred. It was a way of reaching out to something beyond the immediate struggle, to say that despite the filth and the exhaustion, they were still human. They still remembered what it meant to hope. And then, there was the solidarity that emerged in the shared experience of hardship. Life in Kowloon was unlivable, yes, but it was deeply alive. The streets buzzed with movement, the air thick with the rhythm of survival. People here did not just exist side by side. They existed together. Each person's struggle was everyone's struggle. The shared hardships, the sleepless nights, the constant noise, the daily fight for survival created bonds that were stronger than any external system, stronger than any law or structure. In Kowloon, community was not a luxury. It was the very foundation of life. Without it, no one would have survived. Through the grime and the decay, the kindnesses that flickered from one person to another created a web of human connection. It was an invisible network, spun from shared suffering and unspoken understanding. The city's indifference couldn't crush it. The suffocating walls of concrete couldn't contain it. No matter how hard the city pressed in, there were still moments of grace, small acts of kindness that held the fabric of life together. You realize now that it is in these moments, in the quiet exchanges of warmth and humanity, that you see the city's true defiance. The walled city may have tried to erase the spirit of the people, but it never could. The spirit, the will to survive, was not something the city could control. It was too resilient. And though the walls might have closed in around them, the people here had found a way to make space for each other, space for kindness, for compassion, for hope. This was their rebellion. This was their resistance. As you stand in the darkness of the alley, the sound of coughing from the rooms above, the laughter of children from below, and the low hum of the city vibrating through the walls, you realize that, despite everything, life here is not empty. It is full of struggle, yes, but also full of connection, full of people holding on to each other, even when the world itself tries to tear them apart. Life in Kowloon may have been unlivable, but it was never devoid of life. It begins with a whisper, a rumor, quiet at first, slipping through the narrow passageways, passing from neighbor to neighbor, growing stronger with each retelling. It's the kind of news no one wants to hear, but everyone knows is coming. The government has announced demolition orders. The walled city is no longer a place of refuge. It is now a relic, a historical artifact doomed to be erased. The city, which had survived for so long by its own rules, outside of any official recognition or order, would finally be recognized by its destruction. At first, the announcement feels unreal. How could they destroy the place that was home to so many? How could they tear down the labyrinth that had been built, piece by piece, by so many hands, over decades? The walls, the alleys, the stairwells, the factories, the homes, how could all of this be torn apart, reduced to rubble, swallowed by bulldozers in progress? But the reality sets in quickly. Families, already fragile and worn down by years of living in constant survival, begin to pack. They move quickly, silently, gathering what little they have left. The familiar, chaotic streets now feel empty. The alleyways that had once hummed with life seem oddly quiet, as if even the city itself knows what's about to happen. People fill their sacks with clothes, with food, with trinkets, with whatever they can carry. But there's no room for everything, no space to hold on to the lives that have been built here. What's left behind will be left behind forever. The packing is not done with excitement or relief, but with a sense of loss. There's a deep grief here, something that pulls at the chest, something that can't be easily named. On one hand, there is a kind of relief, a feeling that, perhaps, the suffering will end, that the city's oppressive grip will finally loosen. The cramped quarters, the constant noise, the illness, the filth, these things will no longer be their daily reality. For some, it feels like an escape, a way out of the suffocating maze that has held them captive for so long. And yet, in the same breath, there's the realization that they are leaving behind more than just walls and broken pipes. They are leaving behind their home, the place that, for all its faults, had become their world. In the walled city, there was no clear boundary between what was home and what was prison. It had been both. The city had been a place of survival, yes, but it was also a place where people found ways to make lives, to create homes, to form families. It had been a place where hardship was shared, where survival was a collective effort. Now, with the announcement of demolition, there is a rush to move, to flee, but also a mourning for what will be lost. The bulldozers arrive on a hot afternoon. They are not subtle in their approach. They are machines of destruction, designed to crush everything in their path. The roar of the engines cuts through the air, signaling the end of something that had once been alive. The sound is deafening, the vibrations shaking the ground beneath your feet. The city, which had once been a labyrinth of walls and narrow passages, begins to fall apart in pieces. The concrete crumbles, the steel bars snap, and the dust rises like a cloud, swallowing everything in its wake. As the bulldozers push through the streets, the lives of the people who had once inhabited the city are exposed. What was once hidden behind closed doors, behind the thin plaster walls, is suddenly visible to all. The quiet intimacy of life within the walled city is laid bare before the eyes of the world. The rooms that had once been private spaces for families to sleep, to eat, to live are now open, their contents spilled out like forgotten memories. A bed, half covered with a thin sheet. A table, cluttered with bowls and utensils. A shrine tucked in the corner with offerings of rice and incense. These intimate pieces of lives are now exposed to the public, stripped of their meaning. The city's secrets are no longer hidden in the dark corners of its walls. They are out in the open, ready to be catalogued, photographed, and forgotten. The sound of destruction is overwhelming. But as the bulldozers continue to crush the labyrinth, something else happens. The city's constant noise begins to fade. The hum of machinery, the clatter of footsteps, the cries of children, the laughter, the arguments, these sounds, which had once been the rhythm of life here, start to quiet. The noise becomes softer, then softer still, until there is nothing but the sound of the bulldozers, the distant thump of concrete crumbling, and the occasional murmur of a voice asking what happens next. As the walled city is dismantled piece by piece, it's easy to forget that, for all its flaws, it was a place full of life. A place where people endured, yes, but also a place where they found joy, where they found each other. The demolition doesn't just tear down buildings, it tears down the very essence of what made the city alive. It's as if the soul of Kowloon Walled City is being wiped away, and with it, the stories of the people who lived there, the families, the workers, the children who grew up in the shadow of those walls. And yet, even as the city is being reduced to rubble, there are moments of reflection. For those who are leaving, for those who are witnessing the end of this place, there's a sense of finality, a recognition that this chapter is over. But there's also a sense of something deeper, something that can't be easily erased. The people who lived in Kowloon, who survived the chaos and the hardship, carry with them something that the demolition can never take away: the memory of the city, its people, and the way they made it through. The walled city is dying, but its memory remains. It lives on in the people who walked its streets, in the families who shared its tiny rooms, in the workers who labored in its factories, in the children who played in its alleys. The memory of Kowloon Walled City isn't confined to photographs or documentaries. It is embedded in the minds and hearts of the people who were there. They are the city's true survivors. And so, as the bulldozers continue their work, crushing the remnants of what once was, you stand there, watching the destruction, feeling the weight of it. The city is gone, but its essence remains with you. The memories, the struggles, the moments of kindness, the community, all of it stays with you in ways that will never be erased. No matter how much rubble is left behind, the city dies. But the people who lived in it, the lives that were forged there, cannot be forgotten. And so, as the dust settles and the last walls fall, you know that Kowloon Walled City will always exist in the minds of those who survived it. Even in its absence, it will continue to live on. The bulldozers have done their work. The walls that once stood tall and imposing, pressing together with the weight of thousands of lives, are now rubble. The maze of narrow alleys, the stacked buildings, the hidden corners where families slept and worked, they are gone. In their place, there is nothing but dust and silence. Where the streets were once alive with the hum of human activity, there is now a haunting quiet that fills the space. a stillness so thick it feels suffocating. And yet, the city is not truly gone. The walled city may have been razed to the ground, but what it stood for, what it represented, cannot be destroyed by the sweep of a bulldozer. Its legacy lives on, not in the crumbled concrete and scattered debris, but in the memories of the people who lived there. The walls may have fallen, but the city's meaning has not. For the people who are part of Kowloon Walled City, its end is not something to be celebrated or mourned in simple terms. The demolition is, in many ways, a final act of closure, a city that was never meant to last finally being erased from the map. But for those who lived there, for the generations of families who carved out lives within its walls, the loss is profound. It is not just the loss of a place, but of an identity, a community, a way of life that was as unique as it was harsh. The walled city was never a place of order. It was never a place of comfort, of safety, or of luxury. It was built on the fringes of society, a place where survival trumped all other concerns. Yet, in the midst of that survival, something remarkable happened. People created lives within the chaos. They built homes in the cracks, formed families in the cramped corners, and found solidarity in the shared struggle of daily existence. Despite its physical decay, Kowloon Walled City was alive, full of stories, full of people who made it their own. Now that the walls have fallen, those stories remain etched not in the concrete or the brick, but in the hearts of those who live them. The memory of the city is not something that can be bulldozed away. It is a living, breathing thing, carried forward by those who experienced it, by those who fought, worked, and loved within its confines. You can still hear the echoes of Kowloon in the voices of its people, in the recollections of those who spent their childhoods dodging through narrow alleys, in the quiet smiles of those who remember the warmth of a neighbor's kindness in a place where everyone was always just trying to survive. These memories are more than just snapshots of a difficult past. They are the foundation of something much more meaningful. They speak to the resilience of the human spirit, to the ways in which people, even when faced with the most crushing circumstances, find ways to hold on to each other, to share what little they have, to build something lasting from the smallest gestures of compassion. The memories of Kowloon Walled City are not clean or simple. They are messy, complicated, filled with both suffering and joy. They are memories of a place that was both a prison and a home, a place where people were trapped by poverty, by circumstance, by geography, yet found ways to thrive in their own way. The city's legacy is one of endurance, of people refusing to be swallowed whole by their environment, of finding moments of happiness even when surrounded by decay. As the new city rises in the place of the walled city, with its neat streets, its open spaces, and its carefully planned buildings, there is a sense of dissonance, of something lost. The new city, for all its progress and order, feels sterile, disconnected from the history that once pulsed through the very ground beneath your feet. The streets are wide, the buildings tall, and everything is clean. But the memory of Kowloon lingers like a shadow in the corners of your mind, a reminder of a time when life was lived with rawness, with urgency, with a kind of grit that can't be replicated by modern convenience. There is a certain hollowness to the new city, a lack of the spirit that once thrived in the heart of Kowloon Walled City. The people who were once part of the city's vibrant chaos now find themselves scattered, displaced, their lives no longer bound together by the walls that once defined their community. The new city offers comfort, yes, but it also offers distance. It offers convenience, but it takes away the intimacy that once defined life in Kowloon. The shared struggle, the collective survival, it's all gone now, replaced by the ease of modern life. And yet, as you walk through the park that now occupies the space where Kowloon once stood, you realize that the city has not been completely erased. The memory of Kowloon still lives in the small things, the way people interact with each other, the way they share a quiet smile or a knowing glance, the way they instinctively help one another when needed. The spirit of Kowloon may have been buried beneath layers of concrete and glass, but it has not disappeared. It has simply shifted, taking on new forms, continuing to shape the lives of those who once lived there. You can still hear the echoes of Kowloon in the stories people tell. They speak of the city not just as a place of hardship, but as a place where life, in all its messy, painful glory, was lived to the fullest. They speak of the way people worked together to survive, of the way they found joy in the smallest things, of the way they built a community out of nothing but sheer will. These stories are more than just nostalgia. They are a testament to the strength of the human spirit, to the ways in which people can create meaning, even in the most impossible circumstances. And as you stand in the middle of the new city, with its clean streets and bright lights, you realize that Kowloon Walled City was never truly about the walls. It was about the people who lived within them. It was about the way they refused to be defined by their circumstances, the way they found a way to make their lives meaningful, even when the world around them seemed indifferent to their suffering. The walls may have fallen, but the city lives on. It lives on in the memories of those who were there, in the stories they carry with them, in the way they still see the world. The legacy of Kowloon Walled City is not in its buildings or its streets. It is in the lives of the people who lived there, who fought to survive, who found a way to make it through each day. The city may be gone, but what it meant, what it stood for, remains embedded in the hearts and minds of those who lived it. Kowloon Walled City was never just a place. It was a living, breathing organism, full of contradictions and complexities. It was a place of suffering, yes, but also of resilience, of solidarity, of humanity, in the face of unimaginable hardship. It was a place that showed the world that even in the darkest corners of life, there is always a glimmer of light. And that light, even as the walls fall and the dust settles, will never go out. As the dust settles and the last of Kowloon Walled City is reduced to rubble, the city that once held so many lives within its crumbling walls is no more. The walls have fallen, the streets have disappeared, and the labyrinth of human existence that thrived in its narrow alleys has been erased. And yet, in the silence that follows, something remains: a presence, a feeling, an echo. The city may have vanished, but the stories of those who lived there endure. They persist, woven into the very fabric of memory, unyielding to the forces of time and destruction. Memory, heavier than rubble, is the true monument to Kowloon Walled City. It is the invisible structure that still stands, towering over the new park that now occupies the land, looming quietly in the hearts of those who once called the city home. These stories, full of hardship and humanity, of pain and perseverance, are now embedded in the collective consciousness of those who lived them. The city may be gone, but its stories, its essence, continue to live on in the recollections of its inhabitants, in the memories passed down like a sacred trust, and in the ways people continue to honor the lives that were once lived within those walls. Survival in Kowloon was more than a matter of just getting by. It was a quiet rebellion, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In a place that never promised safety, comfort, or freedom, the people of Kowloon Walled City fought for their lives, day after day. Their existence was not a grand gesture of defiance, but a subtle, persistent refusal to be broken by the forces that sought to contain them. It was this rebellion that kept them alive, that allowed them to create homes, to form communities, and to find moments of joy, even in the most oppressive of circumstances. And as the city fades into history, those who live there continue to carry its memory. They carry it in the way they share their stories, in the way they still find solace in small acts of kindness, in the way they remember the city not just for its suffering, but for its resilience, for the bonds that were formed amid the rubble. The city's walls may have fallen, but its legacy remains alive in the people, in the memories, in the way life persists, even when the world seems to be falling apart. As we close the chapter on this forgotten corner of history, I invite you to reflect on the lives that were lived there. The city may be gone, but its stories, like all the stories of the past, are worth remembering. So, if you enjoyed this journey into the heart of Kowloon Walled City, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What other forgotten histories would you like to explore? Let me know, because every story has its place in the tapestry of time. If you'd like to support these quiet descents into forgotten history, join me on Patreon, where you'll get early access to ad-free stories and be part of this journey through history's hidden corners. Sleep well, my friends, and remember, while the walls may fall silent, the echoes of life within them persist, woven into the very fabric of memory, forever.